If you were born before 1955, I need you to stop what you are doing right now and stay with me for the next 20 minutes because there is a very real chance that the Social Security check landing in your account every single month is smaller than what you are actually owed. Not by a little. I am talking about hundreds of dollars a month, potentially thousands of dollars every single year, sitting locked inside a government calculation that was done wrong. And nobody from the Social Security Administration is going to pick up the phone and call you to tell you about it. That is not how this system works. The system sends you a number, you accept the number, and the money you were supposed to receive just quietly disappears into a bureaucratic gap that was never designed to fix itself. Today, I am going to show you exactly why this happens. I'm going to walk you through how to find out if it happened to you, and I am going to give you the specific steps you take to fix it before another month goes by and another payment you were owed gets permanently left behind. Stay until the end. The last step is the one almost nobody takes, and it is the only step that actually moves money from the SSA system into your bank account. If you are not subscribed to this channel yet, do that right now and turn on the notification bell. Social Security rules, benefit calculations, and correction procedures change every single year. When they change, nobody from the government comes to your door and explains what it means for your specific situation. That is exactly what this channel does. Subscribe so you never miss an update, and let's get into it. Before I get into the mechanics of all of this, let me tell you about something that happened a little over a year ago that I still think about often. A retired mechanic in Tucson named Harold had been collecting Social Security for 9 years. Every month, $1,412 hit his account. He never questioned it. He figured the government ran the numbers, the government knew what they were doing, and that was that. Then his daughter, who works in accounting, sat down with him one afternoon and pulled up his Social Security earnings statement online. She found it in about 4 minutes. Think about what that means in practice. If even 1 year of your working life is missing from that record, your benefit is permanently lower than it should be. If 2 or 3 years are missing, the gap compounds. One analyst ran the numbers and found that just 5 missing years of earnings history can reduce a monthly Social Security check by more than $150 a month. Over a 20-year retirement, that is $36,000 gone. Not because you did anything wrong, not because you made a bad decision, because nobody told you to open the file and look. Now, let me add a second layer to this. And for people born between 1943 and 1954 specifically, this is the layer that has quietly cost millions of retirees a significant portion of what they were actually promised. And it all comes down to one date that most people were never fully told about. If you were born anywhere between 1943 and 1954, your full retirement age, as defined by the Social Security Administration, is 66. Not 65, not 67. 66 exactly. That is the age at which you are entitled to 100% of your earned benefit, the full primary insurance amount you spent your entire working life building. Here is the problem. The Social Security Administration allowed people to claim as early as age 62, and millions of people did exactly that, especially during years when jobs were uncertain, when health was declining, or when financial pressure made waiting feel impossible. What many of those people were never clearly told is that claiming before your full retirement age does not just give you smaller checks for a few years until the number catches up. It permanently reduces your benefit for the rest of your life. There is no catch-up period. There is no reset button. It is a permanent reduction applied to every single payment you will ever receive. If you claimed at 62 with a full retirement age of 66, your monthly benefit was reduced by 25%, permanently. On a benefit that should have been $2,000 a month, that is $500 every single month you will never get back for as long as you live. And here is the part that makes this even harder to sit with. For many people who made that decision, they made it without fully understanding the math. They were shown a monthly number, they compared it to nothing, and they signed the paperwork. Nobody handed them a sheet that said, here is what you receive now, and here is what you are giving up permanently. That conversation almost never happened. Last spring, a woman in Columbus named Dorothy posted in a retirement planning forum that she had been receiving Social Security for 7 years and only recently learned that her check was 25% smaller than her full benefit because she had filed at 62. She said that when she walked into the SSA office that day, no one sat her down and explained what the early filing decision would cost her for the rest of her life. She was shown a monthly amount, and she signed. She found out the full picture 7 years later, sitting across from a friend who happened to understand how the formula worked. That story struck a lot of people because it is not an edge case. It is one of the most common financial regrets in the entire retirement community, and it has a very specific shape for people in that birth year range. Now, I want to be direct about something important. If you have already been claiming for years and you claimed early, I am not here to make you feel bad about that. The decision was made. The information you were given was incomplete, and relitigating it serves no one. What I am here to do is show you that there may still be significant money you have not recovered, and for reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with when you filed. Because here is what most people collecting Social Security right now genuinely do not know. Even if you claimed at the correct time, right at your full retirement age of 66, the check you are receiving this month may still be wrong, because the earnings record feeding that calculation was never accurate to begin with. And that is the fixable part. That is the part the SSA will actually do something about if you bring them the right documentation.
Let me also tell you about the people who did everything right, who waited, who planned, who claimed at exactly the right time, and who are still being underpaid because of errors buried deep in a system that has never once sent them a letter explaining the discrepancy. These are not people who made bad decisions. These are people who played by every rule and are still losing money every single month because of clerical errors that happened decades before anyone told them they should be tracking their own earnings history. Now, let me talk about the delayed retirement credits, because this is a part of the calculation that many people assume was applied correctly to their benefit, when in fact it sometimes was not. If you were born between 1943 and 1954, and you delayed claiming beyond your full retirement age of 66, the SSA was supposed to credit your benefit with an 8% increase for every full year you waited, up to age 70. That is a potential 32% increase above your full earned benefit if you waited all 4 years. That is not a small number. On a base benefit of $2,000 a month, 4 years of delayed credits would bring your monthly check to approximately $2,640. The difference is $640 a month. Over 20 years, that is more than $150,000 in additional lifetime income. The important thing to verify right now is whether those delayed retirement credits were actually applied correctly to your record when you filed. Errors in this specific calculation are less common than earnings record errors, but when they do happen, they are substantial. If your benefit was supposed to reflect 3 or 4 years of delayed credits, and the math in your record does not match what you were expecting, you are leaving real, significant money unclaimed. When you log into your My Social Security account, you can see your benefit amount along with the factors used to calculate it. If the numbers do not add up, that is worth a phone call, and I will tell you exactly what number to call and what to say before this video is over.
I also want to spend some time on a specific population that has been hit especially hard by SSA calculation errors, and that is surviving spouses. In May of this year, a report from a government oversight office confirmed that thousands of widows and widowers had been underpaid due to an error in a process called the Widows Indexing Computation. The SSA itself acknowledged the problem. Those people did not do anything wrong. They filed correctly, they waited the appropriate amount of time, they followed every instruction they were given. And the math inside the SSA's own system was applied incorrectly during a manual processing step that nobody was monitoring closely enough. The Inspector General estimated that roughly 40% of surviving spouses reviewed during that specific period may have been affected by similar errors. 40%. Let that number sit with you for a moment. That is not a rounding error. That is not a minor administrative oversight. That is a systemic failure that the government quietly acknowledges when pressed, but does not go out of its way to publicize, because publicizing it would mean contacting millions of people to tell them the system shortchanged them.
and that is an enormously expensive and complicated thing to do. If you are a surviving spouse currently collecting Social Security survivor benefits, this particular issue applies directly to you, and checking your calculation is not optional. It is urgent. The widow's indexing computation affects how your deceased spouse's earnings are adjusted for inflation before being used to calculate your benefit. If it was done incorrectly, your monthly check may be materially lower than it was legally supposed to be. The documentation you need to correct it is the same documentation I am about to walk you through, and the process to file the correction is the same process that applies to everyone. Here is what I want you to do right now, and this is the section of this video that you should be writing down or screenshotting to come back to. The first thing you need to do is go to ssa.gov and either create or log into your My Social Security account. If you have never done this before, it takes roughly 10 minutes to set up.
And you will need your Social Security number and some form of identity verification, typically through a phone number or email that is already on record with the government. Once you are logged in, you are looking for your earnings history. This is a year-by-year record of every single dollar that was ever reported to Social Security under your name and your Social Security number, going all the way back to the very first job you ever held. Go through that record carefully. Do not skim it. Do not assume the numbers look right because they're printed neatly in a table. You are specifically looking for any year where something seems off. A year that shows $0 when you know without question that you were working. A year where the income figure seems dramatically lower than what you were actually earning during that period. Any gap anywhere in the timeline of your working life that does not match your memory of your own career. If you find one of those things, you have found money that was quietly subtracted from your benefit calculation without your knowledge and without any notification from the SSA. That money was promised to you. It was earned by you, and there is a formal process to get it back. The second step is to gather your documentation. And I want you to hear this clearly because I know a lot of people get discouraged when they hear the word documentation. You do not need to have every tax return and every W-2 going back 40 years. Start with what you have. Old tax returns, W-2 forms, pay stubs from employers you remember working for, letters from a union or a pension fund that can verify your employment history. Even partial documentation covering 2 or 3 of the years that appear incorrect in your record can be enough to open a formal earnings correction review. Start somewhere. Do not let the scope of the task stop you from beginning.
The third step is to file Form SSA 7008. That is the official request for correction of earnings record, and it is available directly on the SSA website at ssa.gov. You fill it out, attach your supporting documentation, and submit it. You have 3 options for submission. You can mail it directly to the SSA. You can call them at 1-800-772-1213 and ask them to open an earnings record review while you have someone on the phone. Or you can walk into your local Social Security office in person, bring your paperwork with you, and request that they open the review while you are there. In-person visits often move faster simply because you can answer questions in real time and hand over documents directly. Once you submit the request, the SSA begins a process of matching your documentation against their existing records. They go back to employer filings, IRS records, and any other corroborating sources they can access. The correction timeline typically runs between 10 and 90 days, depending on the complexity of the discrepancy and the volume of requests they are processing. If there is a balance owed to you after the correction is confirmed, they will calculate the full retroactive back pay and issue it as a lump sum direct deposit to the account on file. That lump sum covers every underpaid month going back to when you originally filed, which in some cases represents years of accumulated difference. Now, there is something important about timing that I do not want you to miss, because this is where the urgency of acting now becomes very real. While the SSA does have some discretion to correct obvious errors regardless of how long ago they occurred, there is a general guideline that earnings are most easily corrected within 3 years, 3 months, and 15 days from the end of the tax year in which those wages were paid. What that means practically is that the older the error in your record, the harder it becomes to fix, and the more documentation you are going to need to support your claim. Recent errors from the late 1990s or 2000s may be resolvable with just a few documents. Errors going back to the 1970s or early 80s may require more effort, more documentation, and more persistence through the review process.
This is not a reason to panic, but it is absolutely a reason to move on this sooner rather than later. If Harold in Tucson had waited another 5 years before his daughter sat down with him and pulled up that earnings statement, those 1980s records might have been impossible to recover. The shoebox in the closet would have been useless, not because the W-2s were missing, but because the statute of limitations on easy correction had long since passed. Do not let that happen to you. The account is free to create. The earnings history is yours to review, and the form to file a correction takes less than an hour to complete. Whatever you have on your schedule this week, this is worth 60 minutes of your time. I also want to address one more thing that comes up every time I cover this topic, which is the question of what happens if the SSA denies your correction request. It happens. It is not common when you have solid documentation, but it happens. If your initial correction request is denied and you believe the denial is incorrect, you have the right to appeal. The Social Security appeals process begins with what is called a request for reconsideration, which is essentially asking a different set of SSA reviewers to look at the same evidence and come to a fresh conclusion. If reconsideration still does not resolve it, you can escalate to a hearing before an administrative law judge, which is a formal but non-courtroom proceeding where you can present your evidence and argue your case directly with the judge. The vast majority of legitimate correction disputes are resolved long before they reach that stage, but you should know that the process does not end at the first denial. You have options, you have rights, and the system is required by law to give you a meaningful opportunity to present your case. This is the part I want to stay with you after this video is over. The Social Security Administration is not your adversary. Most of the people who work there are trying to do their jobs correctly inside a system that is genuinely enormous and complex. But the system was built on decades of paper records and manual entries from thousands of employers across 100 years of American economic history. It makes mistakes, real mistakes, on a significant scale.
That cost real people, real money. And the honest reality is that the burden of catching those mistakes does not fall on the SSA. It falls on you. The system is not designed to correct itself. It is designed to process what it has and send you a number. The only way you catch an error is by looking. And the only way an error gets fixed is by you raising your hand and saying, this number is wrong, and here is my proof. If you were born before 1955, your full retirement age was 66. Your benefit was supposed to be calculated on your 35 highest earning years, correctly recorded, correctly indexed, and correctly applied. Before you close this video and go back to whatever you were doing, I am asking you to do one thing. Go to ssa.gov, log into your My Social Security account, and look at your earnings history. All of it. Every year, going back to the beginning of your working life. Look at it the way Harold's daughter looked at his, like an accountant who is not going to accept a number just because it is printed on a government form. If you see something that does not look right, it probably is not. The form to fix it is SSA-7008. The number to call is 1-800-772-1213. And the local office where you can walk in, sit down, and hand someone your documents is listed on ssa.gov by zip code. Send this video to one person you love who was born before 1955 and is collecting Social Security right now. One share, 10 seconds. If their earnings record has even one missing year, finding it could put over $1,000 a year back into their account permanently. Money the SSA has been calculating wrong without sending a single letter to tell them about it. Money they owed. Money they were promised. Money that is sitting in a calculation error waiting for someone to care enough to go find it.
That is what this channel is here to do. If this helped you, leave a comment below telling me where you are in this process, whether you just set up your account for the first time or whether you have already found something that doesn't look right. I read every comment. Subscribe if you are not already, share this with someone who needs it, and I will see you in the next one.